So welcome
So you
to
want to head out? Yeah.
Meaningful Interviews. I'm Rabbi Chaim Dalfin. I'm here with Rabbi Levi Krinsky, the Chabad representative of New Hampshire, the entire state, all its people. Rabbi Krinsky is the son of Rabbi Krinsky, of Rabbi Yehuda Krinsky, also known as Rabbi Yudel Krinsky. And this segment of our interviews is focusing on, in a sense, the kids, the children, the sons, whoever wants to offer information of the maskirim, of the secretaries of the Rebbe. And so, first of all, Levi, I thank you very much for agreeing to this. And I want to speak, like I told you, not so much about your father's role as a secretary, because a lot of that we know about, and what we don't know about, I don't think we'll ever know about.
No.
But as a father, as a husband, the humanity of the person, and I want to say, over the years, I've heard many things more from your father than the other maskirim, the other secretaries, that to me were more human-like, you know. And personally, I really focus on that. I recall he spoke several times at the Kinnas Hashluchos about the Rebbetzin Chaya Mushka, and they were very, very powerful, endearing words and an eye opener on certain issues.
Deeply
So
personal, right?
yeah, yeah. So it's that I really want to hear from you in this interview. So let me begin with asking you, what's your view? How do you see yourself, your brothers, and we know each other for many years from yeshiva, from the Lubavitch yeshiva, family, friends. How do you kids grow up in this environment, knowing that your father had such an important and prominent place in really the development of Chabad Lubavitch in America? I mean, I'm not even talking about the fact that he learned by the previous Rebbe and he saw the previous Rebbe with 1940s. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about with our Rebbe. He had an early relationship with him. So how did that impact all of you from childhood till now? That's my question.
So the impact keeps on impacting because Baruch Hashem is alive and well.
Baruch
And
Hashem.
we still see him from time to time. It's, about 250 miles south of New Hampshire is Brooklyn. And I do try to get it just to see him, Baruch Hashem, when I can. And it's always great to see each other. It's a very, very, very fine line when you talk about the maskirim. I'm also married to a maskir's daughter, so I have it from really both sides.
Right,
I think
right, right. Your
this
wife is
generation doesn't know that, but that's okay.
Rabbi Klein's
Rabbi
daughter,
Achmil
right?
Binyamin Alevi Klein's my shrer, which is a miracle in and of itself, because he used to see me today in yeshiva wasting time. So the fact that he sort of agreed for the shidduch, I guess, is a miracle. A meifus in itself.
Yeah,
No regrets. But I'll tell you that it's important to remember, and it's a very fine line, is they're human beings. Obviously, they have wives and children, and there's Zadis, great-grandchildren, right? And they were absolutely believe in nefesh, all in terms of their every fiber of their being was the Rebbe's work because the Rebbe didn't rest. The Rebbe maybe slept a little bit, maybe a little bit. The Rebbe didn't vacation. There was no vacation in their life. So saying their work as a father, as a parent, is a good question because how did they have time to raise the children?
right,
And and to realize that they had to do both because obviously they have many fairly average to large families, and each one is a bracha. But to know that they were always a phone call away, or a text, no texting, but being able to be at the Rebbe's beck and call at any time was the way they lived, almost like a doctor on call, really. And that's why the Rebbe kept them going, because the Rebbe, there was no time off. So in our life, vacations, Bronx Zoo, didn't exist. There was no vacation. I do remember, and maybe some way that's how maybe I'm here 36 years after I moved out here in Tavshin Samach. Samach Chaim Pei, yeah. Nun Tes Samach, we moved out to New Hampshire. My father did take those little vacations. My father's a Bostonian, as you probably know. All right. He grew up in
Sure.
Boston, American. And he did love going up to Bethlehem, to where the South community is, for a couple of days. So I think when he told the Rebbe he was going for a few days and somebody would cover the office, the Rebbe obviously let him go in the summer for 2 to 3 days. Even then, the trips are longer because the highways weren't as relevant as they are today. But the fact that they were parents and we had to go through the yeshiva system and raise their children certainly is where you're getting to. How do they juggle that? So there's no question that in each of the cases, I can't say each of the cases because my shver, I don't talk about him now, came from Eretz Yisrael as a yossam, But my father, the Rebbe knew his father, the Groners certainly know. There's a history of his respect for them. Put a big chidim Yerushalayim. My father's the youngest of nine,
Right.
and the Rebbe took him as a bacher in Tezayin. He really is a bacher. He connected with him on many levels. He gave him discussed Torah with him. He was one of the originals that was, in 1950, 51. He did meet the Frierdiker Rebbe. He just said he had brachas from the Frierdiker Rebbe. There's some famous stories. But again, I know your focus is not him and the Rebbe, because there are books that are and will be written about that, and most of our viewers know that, but how he was as a parent. So I think that clearly us understanding that role, and I wouldn't deny the fact that till today, it's a yichus. I feel honored. You can't pick a father or mother. We know that he was a masker, is a masker. Until today, he does go to the office. He has plenty on his plate. He's almost 92. Sadly, it changed when my mother passed away about 12 years ago. His life did change, but the work ethic and his commitment to the work doesn't end. And we always knew we weren't going to have family time dinner.
You did
We
have
did
you did
regularly.
you did have or you didn't have?
We did have some times when he knew he would come home later, so we'd have a snack, and then later we'd have dinner around the table. We're six of us. So if we were all home, as one got older, went to yeshiva, was less. We're four boys and two girls. There was that time if we knew he's coming home, but that can easily be delayed. Hi, honey, I'll be home in 10 minutes, but lav dafka 10 minutes. So as kids, we came home, Ocean Parkway, get on the bus and had to get back to home. It was not an easy thing to wait till dinner, but we tried as much as we can. Of course, Friday night, he would fall asleep at the table because he was exhausted. And the Farbrengens weren't as frequent then growing up as they were in later years. But,
Right.
that's Shabbos was. But I never knew Shabbos. Chassidim Lubavitch also never knew any Shabbos other than a Farbrengen. I mean, what do you do Shabbos? Learn and get schloffen, Sadly, now we know. But the fact is, it was a home that was run with a lot of warmth and love. And we always knew this was a great schus and things that he was involved with. Our house was a little bit of a Chabad house style. I know you mentioned he worked in the World Sphere back in the early 60s as a bacher. He traveled to Eretz Yisrael. He was a masker for the 10 of them. He took notes and reported to the Rebbe that trip to Eretz Yisrael. Before that, the Rebbe suggested he get time to get married and almost picked my mother, the Shidduch, because there's Moshe's Shrestha, which Kazinitz, who was married to my mother's daughter Kazinitz. You knew probably my Zayda.
Yes.
And the night of their engagement, they went to camp. Tezan Yud Zayin came back very late, and the Rebbe said, just
Yeah. It's frozen. Why is it
midnight
frozen?
when they came back with everything, and she said, "This is my man. This is the Rebbe's masker." So his private life and his raising his children, and of course being a wonderful husband and father, which he is still today, is very much the way we only knew. This is the way we knew it.
Okay, let me
And there
ask.
are things that we took for what they were. Every day was a new, we knew sort of what to expect. Expect
Okay,
unexpected.
so I want to ask a few questions. So, for example, did he ever do homework with you?
No, no. Cast Rabbi Fuchs and Rabbi Barnetsky and Rabbi Goldman.
No,
Why
but
didn't you do your homework?
no. What I'm saying is,
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, he did ask
he
me.
was home sometimes in the evening, wasn't he?
Yeah, well, sometimes he eats up and go back. I remember as a kid, very, very, very clear. I slept in the back room with my older brother. Everybody shared a bunch of rooms those days. And I was sometimes scared when I was already 13, 14, 15, maybe even 8, 9, 10. There were Genevas in the neighborhood. Someone
Yeah,
broke into my neighbor's house.
yeah. It was tough, tough,
My
tough
father wasn't
times.
home. I had a neighbor downstairs. We lived on 2 floors. But I couldn't really fall asleep when I heard his garage door open. I fell asleep because I knew Daddy's that he's home. It could be 10, 11, 12. It could be after Yechidus, sometimes much later. He wasn't home many of those nights. Again, Yechidus used to be more often, then it changed how that went, but he always took the Rebbe home after Yechidus. There were times that he came home in the morning because the Rebbe just went home. The wee hours in the morning. So I'm sure I slept, but I remember when he came in because I hear the garage door. I was in the back room. Obviously, my father was home, and automatically you could just you felt
Right,
comfortable. He was a
right.
tough father. He would stand up for us and take on anybody. There was a toughness to him. He was our protector.
So now I assume I know that he for Shabbosim, maybe in the later years in the 80s, I don't know, from the 70s and the 60s, he had connections with prominent people, respect writers and others. Did
Yeah.
they come for a Shabbos meal? Were you all part of that, or or not really?
It's interesting because I had to go back and remember. I'm an old man now to remember those
You're not
days.
old. I'm older than you.
You're a little older than me. Anyway, yeah. So I had an unveiling today in the cemetery, and I meet some old ladies, and I said I'm early 60s. And you're a kid. I said hang around people that are 80 and 90. Old line. Hey, how do you feel young? Hang out with people older than you, right?
Yeah.
That's everything in life is
No,
obviously.
but really, what about this
Yeah,
question?
no, there were very interesting people that come. My father's one of his primary jobs, as you know, is spokesperson.
Yes.
LMS, Lubavitch News Service. The Rebbe calls
Right.
for candles. Rebbe calls for six tefillin. Rebbe calls for Purim. Right. All that stuff was stuff we did. We actually helped out because it was we had to fold it and help mail them and label them and get them out to the press, which was a regular thing. The Rebbe was edited those. LNS's Lubavitch News Service was his baby, his
Right.
pride and joy. He was educated. He spoke English. He had the language.
Yeah.
And even then,
I
the Rebbe's corrections on those were amazing. The Rebbe made edits on that, but that's a
right.
separate.
I mean, it wasn't. I mean, he said, I think, and I heard it from him that's in 1957 when he was hired. He was hired as the PR person for the Rebbe for Chabad. Is that correct?
All right, I think that was his main job. He spoke a good English. Most of the Russians didn't. A lot of the world affairs, presenting the Rebbe to the world, which was Ein Kleinigkeit. Uh, his definitely was connection to media outlets, and I think a lot of financial banking, financial ins and outs of moving things, of taking various accounts, which he had an understanding in. And I think that that really, in a way, certain ways, continues till today. Again, he doesn't maybe have the same access to his power of his memory, but that was something he really loved, and in particular, the New York Times. Adayim, the New York Times, it's cover to cover. For many years, this is on a slightly different level, though. I don't know if you know that. He would clip the New York Times. Have you ever seen Clip Times?
And he gave it to
Eretz
the Rebbe.
Yisrael, Middle East, all every day. There was a
Right.
box in the Rebbe's room in Maskiris. You remember there's a two-fold
Yes, I do
double
remember that.
folding thing,
Yeah.
where letters went in, and the
Right.
Maskirim would take them as filled or whatever. So, of course, letters of Mohir, important urgency, went in sooner because they were time related. But the clippings went in every day. And I remember when it was clipped, he said, don't eat it, drop, don't make a mess. It's going into there. He clipped it. He cut out the actual articles. And I asked him sometimes what he picks, what would think the Rebbe would want to, the Rebbe would skim through it probably really quick. It's usually I just saw Middle Eastern affairs as it relates to the different presidents throughout the history. Things he knew the Rebbe would enjoy in medicine breakthroughs and things that Rebbe had Bekias, of course, and that we know. And then I think either technology, just cutting edge stuff that he knew that Rebbe would probably want to read up about. Of course, it was the New York Times that Rebbe knew what to trust and not to trust, and not what to trust and not to trust. But that was something he would do at home, I think, and just cut it out while he had his daily
Okay.
coffee.
So now here's another question. How did your mother relate to all this? Now, what I mean to say is, she's a mother. She has young children, and her husband is not home most of the time.
Right.
Um, I mean, I've asked this to several of you kids of the Maskirim, and some have said that in the beginning it was tough, and that's fine. I understand it. Um, and that's one question. The other question is it's maybe a more loaded question, but is how did they support themselves? The America's salary, as far as we know, was not
Yeah.
not a big salary. So
He
did
he
your
do-
mother
he
work?
does he did tell a story. I don't know if it was public or to us, that he was asked to go to Rabbi Chadakov, and that right when he got married, to discuss salary, and it didn't go that well. But I think the lashon, as he can't quote me verbatim, "Es nicht das auch Geld, but was es ist, soll sein auf gute, gesunde Sachen." It wasn't a lot of salary, but whatever the salary was, it should go for good and happy or healthy things.
That was the Rebbe's lush. That was the Rebbe's lush.
Right. Whatever it is, it is. The Rebbe wasn't offering more, but it should be for good things. And Baruch Hashem, for my father, looking back, of course, every family has their issues.
Yeah.
He's very, very, very blessed, and he knows that. And his 6 children did incredible shidduchim, and they all have children and grandchildren today, and they all need certain things they need, But the fact that they're involved a lot in the way the Sakeda Shams to all of us are brings him great joy. And I
So let me
think
ask
that
you. So
bracha then is what we're doing
right,
now.
I
We're the
understand.
seeds of
But
that
tell
bracha.
now,
There's no question
right, but
about it.
lady, tell me about your mother. Tell me how she took it. Tell me, talk a few minutes about how your mother looked at all this. But really,
You would have to ask my sisters. My mother was just a mother who was there for us to make food. She was home a lot. She taught a little bit also in Beis Yaakov for the first years. She totally respected my father's vision. I don't know if there was any question why we don't go on vacation or why don't we take trips to Chalamai trips. I don't remember any of that. She had 2 sisters that she was extremely close to, and they would travel and go into the city. She later had a business, a couple of a shoe business and a K&K on President in Kingston with Mrs. Kievman, Chana Kievman. They had a business, so that kept her busy and probably made some money.
uh-huh.
But you would never ever have heard or known or seen or say we're so poor. Our bar mitzvahs are all, as bar mitzvahs used to be, pretty straightforward. In Fisher Shoal, mine was in the Jewish Center. Our chasanas were all lacking nothing. We never felt in any way. I don't know. I grew up 6 of us in 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom. I never felt deprived. This is the way you live. You have a shower, you have a water, you have food, you have yeshiva. I don't know if I could do that today, 45 minutes on a school bus to Ocean Parkway. But you didn't know better, and I think there was a sense of there was no ever chas v'shalom. I wish my father had another job. I wish he was a real estate broker. We wish we had,
Right, right, right.
we had a
Now,
great house, a great neighborhood, neighbors with Yoel Khan, Shmuel Shraga, Mendel Tenenbaum. And this was the place. This is where we grew up. This was our little circle.
you had box seats.
Yeah. I mean, Yale's
So
Fabrengens and Sukkot.
yeah. So here's the question. Here's another question. So I pick up from your father's public talks over the years that with the Rebbetzin in particular, you had in a way like a much stronger or respectful relationship than the other Maskilim, and I want to know if that came from his initiation or that came from her.
I don't know because I don't know how that developed. I'm married to a Maskir's daughter, and we went to see the Rebbetzin before we got married, as some of my brothers did as well. And if you know the Rebbetzin, she's just the most humblest human in the world, and we know what she gave us. The Rebbe, talk about my mother dealing with a busy father, a busy husband. Uh, she took a liking to him very, very much. Again, his Weltische cook. She was very close to the client, my Shren Shriga too. And I assume the Groners, I don't know, but there was a understanding of her persona, her style, her Weltische style. She was a very worldly lady, enjoyed the world. They used to go out for rides and see the bridges and the tunnels, and she used to be in the architecture in Manhattan. There was not, again, this is not our topic particularly, but when she had medical issues, they went together. They sort out. I think there was just a certain level of trust that was there that she had in him. And I remember when she used to call, and she's Mrs. Schneerson, and that's the way the Rebbetzin did it. And it's hard to know where and how that developed. There are some famous incidents that are more well known, but the fact is that I think I think that Rebbe was comfortable knowing that she has. Also, my Shver, I think, also spoke to her a lot, but on a different level. Yudel Krinsky was there to help guide her. It was, through her when she fell. I mean, there were different things, and even her concern for the Rebbe. There's that famous Lamed Ches line.
Right.
That's verbatim. I don't know. Rabbi Krinsky kennt a sehr viel Doktoren. Ich kenne nicht finden a doctor from my
Right,
man.
right.
And he was there. I was not far away. I remember he went into the office because he has a brother-in-law, Herschel Schusterman, who had
Yes.
just sent a book from a doctor, Ira Rice, a cardiologist, about his cardiology. He had just seen, maybe he had to give it to the Rebbe, I don't know. And that clicked. Why a young doctor from Weiss from Chicago would be the salvation to the,
And
I
that's
don't
what I'm referring. I'm referring to that particular statement as a
know.
an eye opener to
Yeah, to her feelings too. You got to help us out right now because she didn't
yeah,
let them
and
go to the doc,
you
to
know
the hospital as everybody else wanted.
she didn't say it to anybody else. I'm just saying, you know, kulam kedoshim,
I
kulam
can't, I
mahufim.
can't, I can't, I can't, I can't speak for her. I know that she came down the steps. You know, Matzev was not good, seriously not good, and he was there. Or did she come looking for him to say, "This is, he's not going to the hospital because I've never seen him under sedating." She made that call. We heard that many times. But trusting in him was a big deal. And I'll tell you, in the Haight Davis case, which we heard over and over years later, he took the initiative and called Nat Lewin because he knew this had to stop. The books couldn't be being sold, and time was of the essence.
Yeah,
And later, the Rebbe thanked him for doing what Pinchas Meisher Dechet got Pinchas, which is, if you think of those words, Meisher Bein hat Pinchas Gedav Ton Gedav Ton. God of it by the Rebbe Shreya. So that's a trust that he had, and that obviously doesn't change as my father because we respect him for all those pivotal key moments in life that he was there and involved. But this is what he did. This is what he prides himself in, and you know, no one can ever take that away from him.
right, right.
He
Now,
was there in those times of need.
what would you say was the that you witnessed and you saw for him was the hardest kind of moments in his life that you from when you knew him?
Um, I think being at the El Chaf Zayin Adar was there.
Well,
He
of
was there.
course, yeah, of course.
He had a situation his beard was burnt and the chafs with the oil. You know the story.
I know the
He had to go
yeah,
to the hospital and come back, and no one came to pick up the Rebbe. The Rebbe was still at the ale. The Rebbe tam zugesagt mit nicht bleiben kann, you know, you'll be no scars. That was mid horror. I can't imagine. You know, he was fixing the heater and this beard burning. I think Chav Bei Shvat he lived through. He saw the Rebbe's pain. The Rebbe called him upstairs during Shiva to ask Kerne Chamesh and trust. You know, the Rebbe spoke to people, the Maskirim, all the time.
right,
And I don't think you'll see a video of the Rebbe coming out of my father's caddy or the Mashresk without a dank, a dank. We're saying a dank, our job, the human part of the Rebbe. But if so in the Rebbe's anguish, Shochav Beishvat, my father, I think, drove the Rebbetzin to the hospital. It was the last moments he drove her there when she had passed away, Chav Beishvat. So those are parts that I think if we all suffered and we felt it in such a deep level as Chassidim, I think the Maskidim that were really up close could see the Shinir and the Rebbe. I mean, that was the Rebbe lost his only his only real Chassidus there, his own Rebbetzin who he adored.
okay. So
Uh,
now you spoke about the pain of Zayin, that you spoke about the pain of Memches, the Rebbetzin passing. The Rebbe passes away, Gimel Tammuz. What did you see in him then?
it's hard to know. You know, it's hard for me to believe that they were still young like I am. We were kids, but they were our age. It's hard for me to think Lamed Chesed was 50 something. Like, how could it be? He was an old man, but now we're past that, Baruch Hashem. I just think there was a lot more stress. You know, there was a lot of anxiety in the office. There were times when things didn't go right. That it would dictate things, not want the things didn't go the way we wanted to go. There's a famous story like Baima. I don't remember the details when the Rebbe wanted a coin printed, like
Yeah,
Baima, magical coin, and the Rebbe said, "It's my fault, and I should have told you before, and I should have." And the Rebbe, I heard that my father, he got to work. They worked 48 hours. They drove to Haven. They got coins and printed. They brought it to the Rebbe. I have to get you the correct quote. The Rebbe said, "What you the nachas ruach you brought me was
right,
Amos." After the wording is powerful.
right. So why are you mentioning that regarding Gimel Tammuz? Not following.
No, just saying these are moments where the Rebbe expressed frustration and upset, frustration on his, took the blame on himself,
Yeah,
but yet they were able to see that and react to it to bring I mean, everybody wants one thing with the Rebbe. Geirem dein nachas ruach. You write a pan, it says Geirem dein nachas ruach. You know, all I want to do, take any pain. The Rebbe, you know, till today, my father's working on this case with the Svarim in Russia. He still feels that the judges will force Putin's hand. You know, this is a maskir. The Rebbe's library, my father's office was in a library for many, many years. Again, I think it's hard to separate the two. But the Rebbe, my father knew, and the Rebbe saw the Svarim back when he wanted to see the Kisvei Yad, what joy that brought to him. So they lived with the Rebbe's moments, obviously, as close up. But the fact that they can do certain things to allow things to be smooth, or the Rebbe, a sense of appreciation that Rebbe had for them. I mean, they were handpicked. People can criticize them with all their faults and whatever it is you want to. But they were handpicked to work, and they were clear. I mean, they were the first, closest to the to Makkah.
Absolutely, absolutely.
No question
What
about
what
it.
what what was his relationship like with Rabbi Chadikov?
Hard for me to comment. It's hard to say. He was an employee of Rabbi Chadikov. So if you were on vacation too long, you may have gotten a call to say time to get back. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know because Rabbi Chadika was not known, to be a free spender. And I think there was also some years where the Rebbe was spending money. It was who shluchim should get it, Rosh Shluchim, whatever. And the Rebbe wanted, I don't want to get into that because I don't know, but the Rebbe was great, and the Rebbe got Einem in the Welt, and he will. But I can't get into. I couldn't speak. I wouldn't be fair to say, but I'm sure. Listen, I met Rabbi Chadika before I went on Shlichus, and it was an exceptional. Forever remember that meeting in the back little closet about him with the brachas when I went on Shlichus, and the thing is to have tzuzag, and that the shliach will carry out his mission. He was a unique person. He's a holy, holy man. There's no question about it. I don't know. I don't know that the Maskirim definitely felt that they were being underpaid. I don't think anyone, if they didn't get paid, I think people would figure it out as well. It wasn't really about the money, but it's the way Rabbi Chadika would think. And it's well documented, and he was extremely a great Yerushalayim. But I think in their own ways, they had their life and they had their understanding, and they had to answer to the Rebbe because they had to answer to the Rebbe. They would go into the Rebbe's room. My father would see the Rebbe in the car. Anything he can ask him at any point, not just the oil, because the oil is almost serious,
Right.
but there's issues that came up, and he could ask the Rebbe, and he had access to the palace, to the king. So these are things that we didn't even ask him every day. Anything that's routine, you get sort of used to. Of course, now we understand what a schus and privilege it was to have that all going on in the best years of our life. I think we had the best years of our lives. The Lamids and the Mems, for sure. Chafs are still young. But I'll tell you, going back to what you said before, because we got sidetracked, of course, Irving Spiegel, Hans Morgenthau, professor, even Melville Green before he became the big professor.
Yeah.
Mel Washer, the famous photographer.
Yeah.
These were people who came to our house all the time, or came
Right.
for dinner. My mother was up to it. My mother was a wonderful chef and prepared a stunning 3-4 course meal, and they felt comfortable. And my mother was very influential in getting the Rebbe's library at 760. They had an issue with a Dr. Shapiro that was selling. It was not a lot of money compared to today. And my mother suggested you go to the Schwadron family and you meet them. They had a very big villa up in Great Neck. And it was my mother's initiative. And they met with them and said they want to buy this building. If you look at the history of the library, they put down that money and bought it. And it's because today they want to expand. That was clearly my house. My mother